Hi, Cyrus.
Hi, good morning or good evening, Alexandra. How are you?
Yeah, for me, good evening. So well, actually, we don't work in my company on Fridays, so I'm halfway to my house, my
nice.
weekend. Yeah, nice. We're like Australian guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it as well. As a founder, I thought that I need to make a revolution in my agency.
I love it.
Sometimes you have the power to make a revolution. It's like, let's do this. Well, I guess not all decisions are so let's say highly appreciated by my colleagues, but some of them they seem to be for good. So do you want, Cyrus, to make a quick intro of you, and then you're going to actually go straight to your presentation?
Sounds good.
Oh, okay. So I have a pleasure to introduce Cyrus Shepard, and he worked as lead SEO for Moz for 3 years, and after that he started his own company, SEO company, which is called, I'm going to to suck spelling it the right way. So should I say Zyppy? So
Zyppy.
Tell me, Zyppy. Oh, I wrote it right, Zyppy. Yeah. Okay, I was I even tried to Google this out but Google doesn't know this word, how to pronounce it. Yeah, you can try it. Actually, I tried to write down how to pronounce this word, and Google, Zapier, he was trying to.
That's funny.
Yeah. Actually, Google thought that I'm misspelling something and started to trying to suggest me something. That is interesting. So, do you want to share your slides?
Yeah, let me see if I can get this set up real quick.
Yeah.
All right. Can you see them?
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. And should I start?
Yeah. I'll mute myself, but I'll be here.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me at Optimization Conference. I was there in person but 2 or 3 years ago. It was a great time, and I'm glad to be talking to you again. I'm going to go quickly. Let's see. You are an SEO rock star. You know all the ranking factors. You've listened to Barry Schwartz. You know about content and links and satisfying users, and you do all these things on your website, but you can't rank higher than page 2. You're having trouble. Even though you're doing everything right, you still can't rank higher. You're getting those directory links, those local SEO links, and you're still not ranking. So what's going on here? What is the problem? What if we are missing something? What if there are ranking factors that we don't understand, that Google is not talking about? And I think this is probably happening on a very wide scale today in the world of SEO, that we are focusing on some of the wrong ranking factors. Because Google doesn't talk about all the ranking factors. Google likes to talk about things that they want you to improve, like site speed. For the last few years, we've talked about core web vitals. If you've done anything in the SEO world, you've heard about core web vitals. But in truth, it's only a tiebreaker. In fact, my colleague, Tom Capper, has done a lot of studies with Moz on core web vitals, and his data shows the real world impact is minuscule, super tiny. In fact, a lot of sites that don't pass core web vitals have no effect on their rankings. So we need to look further. We need to look for the ranking signals that Google is not talking about, the ones they don't want us to know about. So I like to read a lot of Google patents, and I think we can find a clue in Google patents about ranking factors that they aren't talking about. And there's been one area of ranking factors in Google patents that they've studied consistently for the last 20 years. They've invested millions and millions of dollars into this, and thousands of hours and PhDs, all sorts of people, whole teams of people working on this, collecting data, and those ranking signals are click signals. How people click on search results and on your websites and back to search results can be a ranking influence. And I wrote a big blog post about this. It was widely shared, and I want to talk about this. So the question is that I most often get when I talk about click signals is, does Google actually use these signals? Sure, they've written about them, they've published patents. They've hinted about them in their documentation. Well, we know they use at least some click signals because they talk about it in their search documents. They explicitly say they use aggregated and anonymized interaction data to assess whether search results are relevant to queries. And interaction data is another name for click signals. Now, the question is, do they use this in a direct way, in an indirect way? We don't really know. And as I'm going to explain here, it doesn't really matter, because even no matter how Google uses click signals, you should act as if they do. And I'm going to explain why here in a little bit, because if you act as if they do use click signals, you can rank higher in most cases. Now, it's important to note, nearly every other search engine in the world uses click signals. Bing uses click signals. Apple's talked about using click signals. We have reason to believe Yandex and DuckDuckGo uses click signals. So if everybody else is using click signals and Google isn't talking about it, Google would have to be an idiot not to use these click signals. So let me explain, because you're probably asking right now, Cyrus, what are you talking about? This is going a little fast. This is going a little over my head. What are these click signals that you're talking about that can improve my ranking? So let's dive in. The first click signal is be the first click. This means when someone searches on Google, they're presented with a list of search results, and Google can measure which result is clicked and clicked first. Generally, you want to be the first website that a user selects out of the list that they are presented with. And even if this doesn't help your SEO, you're still getting more clicks. So let's dive in. How can we increase our first clicks? Oh, sorry, I'm going out of order. The second type of click signal is long clicks, where a visitor looks at your website and stays longer than stays a long time. And this can vary by query. Not every query deserves a long click, but they can measure it by the type of query. And the third is be the last click. What you don't want to do is people click on your website, then go back to Google and click another result because they didn't find their answer. You want to be the last result that people click when presented with search. You don't want people going back to Google. So I want to test these. I want to see if I can influence these factors. So I ran a bunch of experiments. Now I need a caveat, a disclaimer. These are generally small scale experiments. If you're active on Twitter or social media, you see people share SEO experiments. Small scale SEO experiments are not proof of Google's larger algorithm, but they can give us a hint, and they can lead us in the right direction. So take these experiments with a grain of salt. They do not prove anything definitively about Google's algorithm one way or the other, but they are a lot of fun. So here's how I tested click signals. So obviously, the best way to optimize for first clicks, getting the click from Google search results, is everything in your SERP. Your title, your brand, your favicon, your rich snippets, your description. All of these can influence first clicks. And I work on these areas a lot. So I typically, people test their title tag. It's the first thing everybody tests. I thought, what about meta descriptions? Can we influence first clicks with better meta descriptions? So I ran a bunch of experiments. The first thing I did was simply adding keywords to my meta descriptions. I took a list, the top keyword in Google Search Console, and I simply added it to the beginning of every meta description. So you can see the before and after. This is how it looked in Google. Not a huge difference, but would it make a difference? And I did this across a bunch of URLs. Ouch. So adding my keywords didn't do much. It actually dropped my traffic 7%. This was actually worse. So I'm like, this is no good. But we want to keep experimenting, so we try further. What if I remove the meta description? Now, studies have shown that Google only uses your meta description about 30% of the time, and that Google is really good at writing their own meta description. So what if I just remove the meta description and let Google use their meta description each and every time? Obviously, this has got to help me get higher traffic, right? No, it did not help me get higher traffic. In fact, my traffic went down 3% across all the URLs that I tried this. So it turns out that the 30% of the time that Google did use my meta description, that actually seemed to help, and removing it didn't help at all. So based on this, I'll probably keep writing meta descriptions and let Google decide when it's appropriate to use and when it's not. So at this point, I'm getting frustrated. I've tried 2 experiments. Neither of them have worked. So then I tried this trick that I read in a Black Hat SEO forum, that if you write Google guaranteed at the beginning of every meta description, it would increase your click-through rate. This is really spammy. This website, Moz, is not Google guaranteed, but it's in big capital letters. And I was really hoping this one also wouldn't work because it's spammy and it's a lie. So how did it work? This one actually worked. When I put Google guaranteed at the top of the meta description, I got 7% more traffic. And it was spammy. This is how I felt. This was my reaction. The only method that worked was spamming the search result. I don't recommend it, but I think it goes to show that please don't screenshot this. Please don't share this screen on social media. It's not my best look. But it goes to show that you can influence rankings and traffic using meta descriptions. Now, traditionally, people use title tags, and if you follow me on Twitter, I run a lot of title tags experiments. At Moz, we did an experiment where we put solved at the beginning of questions on our Q&A that were solved. We did this across thousands of URLs. Just one little change. Our developers were able to do it. And as you can see, it had a significant increase on traffic, 7% uplift. We kept that one in. This is a great experiment. Title tags are usually a lot easier to work with meta descriptions in terms of optimizing for first clicks. We also removed the boilerplate. Boilerplate are repeating parts of title tags that appear across many URLs. In this case, we published a lot of videos called Whiteboard Friday. We just experimented with removing the Whiteboard Friday part from all the title tags across the entire site. You wouldn't think this would have much of an impact, but when it did, a 21% uplift just by simply removing boilerplate. In fact, Google came out with recommendations recently, which explicitly said, don't try removing boilerplate that's irrelevant that repeats across your site, and you can write better title tags. Removing irrelevant boilerplate is one of the most consistent ways I've found of improving traffic and getting first clicks. I have a ton of title tag experiments. If you're interested in more, I have a webinar that's free on Moz. You can watch it, register, watch instantly. We go over a lot of these experiments. So that's getting first clicks. Now let's talk about getting long clicks. What are long clicks? Long clicks are when a visitor visits your website and they stay a slightly longer time than normal. And this can vary by query. And you don't need a lot of long clicks. You just need more than your competitors. Slightly more long clicks than your competitors. And it's the ratio of long clicks to total clicks. Google has this big long formula that they use in their patent. And but basically, you just want visitors to stay a little longer. Maybe look at other pages. Maybe click around. So I wanted to see if we could influence long clicks. So the first thing I tried was adding video, because everybody says if you want to increase engagement, add video to your content. So we took a bunch of pages on Moz and we added videos to everyone. We have a huge video library, and it was very easy to do because we have relevant videos everywhere. That didn't work. Traffic actually dropped. We got slightly better engagement, but it was inconsistent. And I think the reason was the video wasn't always what people were looking for. It didn't always match user intent. So that didn't work. That doesn't mean it won't work for you, but it's something you could try. So how can we get longer clicks? How about related articles? So you often see related articles at the bottom of blog posts. If you like this article, you might also like this one. But I had an idea. I wanted to try it a little differently than most websites. Most websites, you see those related articles at the bottom of an article. I think that's a terrible place to put them. So what we tried is we put our related articles at the top of the page, where people are likely to see them and click on them. When you put them at the bottom, no one's going to look. They're not going to stick around longer. They're most likely going to be missed. So what happened when we put related articles at the top of the page? 20%. Increase. And this was across a lot of pages. We saw people clicking around a lot more, looking at extra pages. And what's interesting is Search Pilot, who we've partnered with many times, they've done similar experiments where they've increased the number of related articles, and they pretty consistently see an increase in traffic. The trick is getting the right related articles and also your positioning. And if you can do this correctly and get people to spend a longer time on your site and engage more, it can often have a positive effect on your traffic. What's interesting is it helps the pages you put the links on more than the links you're pointing to. And that gets into a bunch of stuff which we won't get into right now. And so finally, I want to take a few things that I learned, and I wanted to do a little case study. Moz, as you probably know, invented domain authority. And I wanted to see if I could take our page, the rank #1 for domain authority, and increase its engagement metrics and help improve its ranking. So I added a bunch of content to this page because I realized what most people are looking for is how to check your domain authority. So we added a bunch of content about how to check your domain authority. And you can say that maybe this was about relevance, that we improved the page quality. Traffic went up significantly. What's interesting, though, is you can see traffic go up a huge amount. We more than doubled. This is thousands and thousands of visits, but look at what happened to bounce rate on the lower part. Our engagement metrics improved at the same time that our traffic went the other direction. And I think that's what you'll find if you improve engagement a lot. Traffic and engagement metrics will improve hand in hand. Okay, finally, my last point that I want to talk about is optimizing for last clicks. And that is making sure that users don't go back to Google because they didn't find what they look for. So you get the first click. People come to your site, they don't find what they're looking for, then they go back to Google. We don't want that. We want to be the last click that people click on. And Google has several patents that explain how this can be beneficial for rankings and how they can re-rank results based on that. So here's the experiment I wanted to try. I wanted to add frequently asked questions. So the theory being that if I answer more questions on the page, that I can get more last clicks because people will find the answer to what they're looking for. So very easy experiment. I simply scraped the people also ask questions on Google for a bunch of pages, a bunch of queries, and I simply took those questions and I answered them and I put them on the page. I did not use fact schema markup. I didn't do anything fancy. I simply answered those questions on the page, and we did this across several pages. And we saw an 18% boost in traffic. Excuse me. Now, this is an experiment I've tried across many sites. I run many affiliate sites. And adding frequently asked questions, even if you don't include fact markup for the rich snippets, is one of the most consistent ways that I've seen to improve quality traffic. Simply because you're answering more questions, and people have less chance of going back to the SERP. You can also see how the engagement metrics improved. We had more pages per session, people stayed longer, and our bounce rate decreased simply by answering more questions. And I think we ranked higher as well, and it was a great experiment. So I want to take all these learnings and talk about a big case study we did. We didn't mean it to be a case study, but how we improved the Moz Q&A. And we incorporated several of all these concepts in improving this. First clicks, long clicks, last clicks. Moz Q&A, thousands of pages, tens of thousands of visits every month. And it was a really old platform. So we did the entire platform. And when we did so, we incorporated some improvements. What were the major improvements? Well, we needed to migrate 100,000 URLs. We did a few speed improvements. We improved sitemap content. But importantly, we didn't change the content. It was the exact same content before and after. So what are the improvements we made? Well, first of all, we improved the relevance through breadcrumbs and related questions. So people had more things to click and other things to click on in the sidebar, related questions on every single question. The question were highly relevant. And as we know from my experiments, the related questions and frequently asked questions were one of the biggest winners that we found, and just simply getting people to click around the website and stick around longer. So when we added these links and when we changed the layout, 16% more traffic across the board. This was the best migration I've ever been involved in all my days ever. Usually we prepare for sort of a downturn in traffic. In this case, we actually saw 17% more traffic. And interestingly, engagement metrics improved incredibly. We saw 10% more pages per session. People were sticking around longer, and the bounce rate went down a lot. People were sticking around. They were clicking on more things. They were reading longer, and we saw a corresponding increase in our traffic. And to be fair, we did make some other improvements, such as speed and sitemap coverage. But again, improving your experience. So we have the major ranking factors. We have links, we have content, we have technical SEO, but we have this as well. We have engagement, satisfying your users. And that means getting the first click, getting long clicks, and being the last click. The ranking factor that nobody talks about, click signals and satisfying your user. People talk about satisfying your user all the time, but they don't talk about ways of measuring it. And these are imperfect metrics. I'll be honest with you. Google doesn't, look at bounce rate. Google probably isn't looking at time on site the way that we think of it. But these are the metrics that we have, and these are the best metrics we have to measure them. So they're kind of a proxy metric. They approximate how Google might do it. So for our case, these are what we want to look at, and engagement is the hidden ranking factor that you probably are not considering that you need to work on harder. Satisfaction is ranking factor number one. Satisfying your users, making sure you're delivering the answer that they want. You're giving the user what they want in every step of the process. In Google SERP, when they look at the results, when they land on your website, and everything related on your page to help satisfy the user, whether it be related links, additional content such as frequently asked questions, a good user experience. Google talks about satisfaction all the time, and I think it's amazing because even for the most obscure query, when a page doesn't have great links, when a page may not have a lot of content, if it is the right answer, Google typically has a magical ability to rank it very highly. And I believe it's because of these user interaction signals, because of click signals, because users are telling Google, this is the page I want. And users are voting with their clicks. And that's how Google is able to figure out how to rank their pages when people don't have all their other SEO correct. If you can satisfy users, you can have terrible SEO and still rank highly. And that's the message I want you to walk away with today. Satisfy your users, get those clicks, keep those clicks, and make sure people don't go back to Google. And that's my speech for today. If you want to follow me, I'm Cyprus Shepard on Twitter. And I hope you learned something, and I hope it was interesting for you.
Sarah, thank you very much for your presentation. Really enjoyed it. Learned a lot of new things. Well, most probably, as an owner of a link building agency, we don't really think too much about long clicks.
Yeah.
Not long clicks. We are looking for links, not clicks.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, 10 long clicks are worth more than one link.
Yeah, no. Yeah, most probably. But I'd love to just kind of stay with the links because I know how to build them at least. As for long clicks, I have no idea.
I should have you build my links, and then I'll do the engagement.
Yeah, most probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I have a question actually about frequently asked questions because nowadays, even though we don't really work with content, but we kind of build links to the most meaningful pages in terms of business KPIs for our clients, and noted that they allocate this kind of a section, for instance, on their commercial pages at the very bottom of the page. And so I have a question actually, because sometimes I see, well, thanks to our offer, that those pages starting to run consistently in Google. But the question is, when someone is looking for something related to, let's say, like informational intent. So for instance, I don't know how to set up a smart security system. And then land into a page that is saying basically basically by our smart security system. And the rest of the part, actually, with the frequently asked question, there's somewhere you need to scroll. So that is my question.
So I think there's a couple ways. There's a few ways that you can handle that situation. One is Google is much better at passage ranking. They announced passage ranking last year, where they can look at just parts of a web page and determine if that part is relevant. They can rank that page, even though the whole page is something different. So I think there's some opportunity there. And if I was a link builder, I think I would link to that specific section using, a hashtag or something like that, an anchor text, an anchor link, linking to that specific part of the page, and let Google figure the rest out. And maybe that part of the page will become a featured snippet.
Most probably.
Yeah, or something like that. So I think there are some opportunities there. The other thing to do, obviously the traditional way to do it, I think, would simply be to create your own page out of that section, separate it out. So now you have two pages and link to your informational content, but make sure your informational content links to your sales page. You might get slightly lower conversion, but the informational content might rank a little better, and you still have the links. You'll still get conversions. So I think there's a couple of different options.
Yeah, but I'm mostly concerned about long clicks, because when it comes to landing to a page that is not really matching your expectations, because you've been looking for how to, the best smart, something like solution, and you're landing on a page that is actually saying, here is the best one for you. Yeah. Not really you've been expecting to land on something like comparison, or at least a list of something.
Yep. And I think that's a valid point, especially if Google determines that the intent is comparison, and the informational query is about comparison, that may have a hard time ranking. But if you do it right, maybe you can get the long clicks, because you're like, here, you're looking for the best. Here's one of them, what you should look for, answer the other questions that they have, what do I need in a security system? And you're answering all those other questions that they have. There's still a way in the door. There's still a way in the door.
Yeah, I understand. That is, in fact, what I was actually, when I was kind of thinking of this, for instance, even if you want to, let's say, you have a page that is, let's say, talking about something, and basically you want to connect this page with search terms like the best or top 10. You can do this without naming your actually competitors. You can use this search query by saying that we've been listed at the top 10 solution by this and this and that, and we've been actually awarded, or we got an award from that type of businesses, and so on. So basically, it's kind of, you need to be creative here.
Yeah, and to tie, that absolutely right. And to tie it back into what I was talking about, if you can start getting those long clicks and last clicks, you're teaching Google that you are the best. So when someone taught, what are the best, blah, 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 and all those click signals will feed into Google's algorithm, and eventually you'll rank high because users have voted with their click, and now you are actually the best, even if they're looking for a comparison. And then people will trust Google and say, oh, well, they're ranking number one, they must be the best.
Yes, most probably.
Yeah.
Always just the power of links.
Yeah.
Depends. Anyway, for sure. Well, I have to add that even though it might sound very realistic and very easy to boost literally any page with links, I have to say that if a page is not really meant to be ranking well by just a user intent and how Google understands what should be ranking by this particular search term, you need 10x more links, you need 10x more budget and effort, and not necessarily is going to lead to something meaningful, because at the end of the day, you're trying not to trick Google, because Google, eventually, most probably will kind of put you at the top of results, but then you have a user. And that is the most problematic part, actually. because sometimes we forget about users and that they are actually the real judges of what we do. And if we are going to kind of change things and only we'll be looking at Google and saying, okay, and that is technically it's doable. I'm more than certain. It just depends on your resources and just definitely on your resources and budgets.
Yeah. To your point, links is one of the easiest ways to rank quickly. Click signals, what I'm talking about, you can rank with far fewer links, but it takes longer. It takes a longer time because you have to build trust, and Google will start you out at the bottom and then test you and slowly raise you over time.
But most probably that will be the best way, or at least using a combination, because when you are trying to rank something that is not meant to be ranking by this particular search term, it's very confusing, because one more time, it's not going to lead to something meaningful. So you're going to get this traffic, but what's next is kind of a leaking funnel. Yep. Absolutely. That is very interesting, because it's always like kind of very controversial when you have a client that is saying, okay, I know I want to rank by this page, and no matter what, even though it doesn't make any sense. Those are the most difficult conversations to have. Generally, and I don't do a lot of client work, but generally, I would advise the client, okay, if you want to rank for that page, you better build the best page for that experience. And we will link you to the other pages and we'll put you in the funnel, and we'll do that. But we don't want to rank your homepage for this because it's stupid. Let's own the click, so that visitors are coming to this page, even though it doesn't promote your business. And then we will give them additional frequently asked questions or related links leading to your product. But let's own that. Let's legitimately own that. So Google wants us to own that. Yeah, that is very true. But it's always like comes down to a client network when you need not only to sell your services, but what's even more important, to educate your users. Yes, absolutely. Like users, your clients equals in some way. Yeah. Thank you very much, Сайрус, for your presentation. Really enjoyed it. Tons of great stuff. So guys really enjoyed it as well. So thank you, thumbs ups. So thank you very much, and have a lovely day.